This is February 1972, and the following tape is an assortment of statements taken from a variety of talks, and these statements are not necessarily related or connected one with the other. The very variance of the idea that each thought contains may, as it has done for myself, help create the undertone or the overtone, or the sound which lies beneath the word, or under the word, or behind the word, or the sound which is being the word, that is quite other than the statement itself. And with that in mind, this tape has been assembled. Those are waxwings. Yes, it's a migrating bird and they come through here usually in great flocks. Just the other day, while I was writing a letter to someone, I watched a great flock of those waxwings as they came wheeling in, and they feed on the cedars down below, the cedars of Lebanon that are down at the hill. Thousands of these beautiful birds with their little perky top notches and soft yellow undersides and sleek wax wings come through when they migrate. You can tell them when their wings are folded by a little telltale red spot that shows on their side. But the other day, when this giant flock came through, it just filled those treetops over there, filled them. And then they would come swooping in, a few from each of the treetops down to the cedars where they would feed. Now, I don't know if that's where they got the name cedar waxwing or not, but they sure do enjoy feeding on those cedars. That's when they're moving south. And as they follow the frost line back north again, as they come back through, they'll eat all of those berries you see there on the holly and pyracantha. They were successfully protected this time by the mockingbird, but when they come back, they'll be so hungry that the mockingbirds won't be able to keep them away. You know, such sights as that, as I saw the other morning, give rise to many thoughts. And at that time especially, because that whole big, vast throng of birds, the whole group of them, was silent. They didn't make a sound, not a peep, not a chirp. Just the flutter of wings, thousands of wings as they came in relays to feed at the cedars. And then they would whoosh away again, almost as if someone signaled. And there was no noise at all but the flutter of feather against wind. And watching them, you would see an individual loner occasionally go flying off away from the flock in some other direction. But he would return in time. Or maybe a group would go wheeling away to the north or the south or the east or the west, away from the throng. But they knew, somehow knew, that the flock would not move on without them. Or they knew precisely when the flock would move on. And it was this that gave rise to much thought. You see, because where were the leaders and where were the followers? This big flock of birds acted as a single one. They had no telephones to send signals back and forth, no way to send telegrams, and yet they all knew. They were all bound together into some sort of a single, beautiful oneness. No leaders, no followers. Well, what could this sensitivity be? So remarkable that each knew the intentions of the whole, and the whole acting in accord with the very best interests of each. How did the individual know how long and when and where? And what was it that moved the whole? Well, I think all of you know. I'm sure you do. An intangible, ineffable symphony of spirit, unheard by mortal ears, pervades this scene right here, right now. And that morning, I saw the notes of the symphony, a wing. Even as right now, each of us here sees the notes of the symphony as all form. That morning, the symphony played its music as the motion and the movement and the rhythm and the dance of one giant flock of waxwings. The individual flight of one little bird might be a fluttering pianissimo of the great grand symphony, and the wheeling, swelling swoops of batches they would leave the cedar tree would be a silent fortissimo. But what it was all was a melody of living love, of love, living. It was a melody to grace my early morning and bring wonder to the heart, even as this minute is ever a melody of grace. The symphony, the ineffable holy symphony that life is, plays us ever more and more. You see, we get the personal sense of self out of the way. Ever more and more we understand what the personal sense of self is, so that it is not the ruler of the scene. Ever more and more that personal sense of the self out of the way leaves the ineffable to be what it has always been, supreme and only and all. But in accord with the precision of science, which happens to be the ruler of this world of tangibility, as we let go the bonds, or as the bonds are loosed and let go, what they were, what those bonds were, and the power that they profess to have or to be, becomes more apparent and seemingly more potent. Now, this paradox seems well nigh insoluble to the mortal view that it supports, to the human ego, to mortal mind, since that concept cannot possibly comprehend that the symphony, the ineffable, intangible symphony and its finite, tangible notes, the forms of the universe, that those two are one. And while the best statements of metaphysical science in words can tell, a few here and there, those who have ears to hear, can tell of the distinction between the wheat and the tares. My experience has been that only love itself can live the two as one until the day of the harvest. And our day of the harvest is our very own comprehension of why the form appears. I might say, of why the what appears. Why it's there, why tangibility, why the scene at hand, and of its beneficence. But more than that, our day of the harvest is when we live that beneficence in more than just idealistic pretense. John Mill said that art necessarily presupposes knowledge. And Somerset Maugham said that the value of art isn't beauty, but right action. Well, I submit that this is absolutely so. Science is quite necessary for an understanding of tangibility. Science is the glue of tangibility. But according to the dictionary, science put to practice and live is the definition of art. Now, science lived is what art is, and of course art then would, as Mill says, presuppose knowledge. That is, presuppose all that the intellect has come to discover identity to be. What I write about is a tranquility that I have discovered very deep within myself. I'll write about that, one. Then, two, I write about the circumstances which, as memory serves, appear to have brought me to that discovery. And then, thirdly, I write of the new views that deep peace that I discovered allows me to have. Now, the rub arises in this regard. These new views are not necessarily independent of all of these sights and sounds that we see, because those sights and sounds, you see, gave rise to the old beliefs. Consequently, in the process of writing, I know of no other way except to write of nature, to enwrap these sights and sounds in one way or another in words. Now, furthermore, this deep peace, which does not mean a human sense of being on an even keel at all. It doesn't mean a human sense of serenity at all. It's not that. It's a peace infinitely greater than that. And this peace also has birthed new feelings and emotions about which, when I write, I can only use parables and similes and analogies, usually of love and nature, of things that are so ordinary on the human scene that the meat of the message is very often obscured by the dumb and utter simplicity of the words. Yet,
This manner of writing appears to speak to a much wider view of my humanity than do all of these humanly precise equations of Christian science or religious science or of Eastern or Western metaphysics. And it also speaks to a much wider view of the humanity I see than does that ice-cold, buttered blade of mysticism that lets one confirm any belief that he cherishes without releasing a single misconception. This is the reason I steer clear of writing mystically, because mysticism allows anyone to hear anything he wants to hear without forcing the release of a single idiotic notion. And furthermore, it doesn't even begin to force the release of that fraudulent ego that possesses misconception and needs misconceptions to maintain its reign in what we call our personal affairs. You see, the fables of Aesop are a horror to the intellect, aren't they? But, well, who ever heard of a talking chicken? Yet the heart gets the message, and the heart is of a higher order than the intellect. Now, someone on the telephone said, would I please define the use of the term heart, that it would mean so much if I would define the use of this term heart. By heart, I mean love. I wanted a better way to say love. But I don't mean love in the sense of the word being synonymous with God, because to me, all words are included in and as the allness that all or God is. But love, meaning feeling. Love, meaning the highest sense of good, is the heart. Now, as I talk, ego and intellect are not to be equated as though they were the same, because they're not the same. Ego and intellect are two different things. When one first awakens to the heart, he's prone to want to throw the intellect right out the window. Yet intellect and heart are in perfect balance. The intellect within the heart. Ego on the other hand, is the belief of a selfhood other than the one. And this belief of a selfhood other than the one uses the intellect as its primary tool. Furthermore, it recognizes that its ego, the belief of a selfhood apart from God, consciously or unconsciously recognizes heart or love as its primary adversary. You see, ego's counter thrust to the ineffable honesty of the heart is to proclaim the intellectual view of the heart as valid. The intellect looks at the heart like a point in time and space looks at a line and tries to define the line. Well, a point in time and space can never define the line. A point can only rise as high as a point. Whereas by geometric definition, a line is an infinity of points. The line can understand the point to infinity, but never can the point in time and space understand the line. It can only theorize about it and speculate about it. And even so, the intellect will never understand all there is to know about love, and yet love, like the line of thought as opposed to a point of thought, understands all there is to know about the intellect. My use of the term ego and heart might be called Yin Yang in Taoism, or male, female, as the Yin Yang has been called, heart being male, intellectualism being female. Yet the two are in perfect balance. The two come together in a singleness, two that are one. and they must be lived as one. In my own case, when I first discovered a heart, I wanted to toss intellect out the window, but to live a heart-oriented life as opposed to having earlier tried to be the grand intellectual, and intellectualism did nothing but drive me to the anguish and agony that forced the discovery of the heart. But to live the heart exclusively does nothing but drive one in its anguish and agony and strange attitudes and outlooks to rediscover the leavening quality or the importance of the intellect, until finally we strike the very happy balance. We quit seesawing back and forth like a teeter-totter to discover the fulcrum that lies at the center, which is the balance. And then we live that fulcrum at the center, the balance. We declare balance to be the identity we are once it's been discovered, because we can't declare an identity to be something that we haven't discovered. That is, and know it. Oh, I haven't said that worth a toot either, but in any event, we live that fulcrum, the balance that we are, suddenly to awaken to the fact that we are not just the fulcrum, not just the balance, but we are being all there is to the entire teeter-totter. We are all there is to male, female, yin, yang. Now, I have found for myself that never, never, never can I understand the answers to anything. And bear in mind, we're supposed to be, just like Jesus said, know what is before thine eyes, then that which is hidden from thee will be revealed. It wasn't until I accepted an identity greater than male or female that I could understand the problems relating to what appear as a tangible male or female and a human experience of maleness or femaleness. A point, you see, trying to understand about a line can never understand about the line. But the point of view forsaken and a line of thought accepted allows the line of thought to understand all there is about the point of view. So it is that we assume the illimitable identity if we expect to understand about the lesser or the confined aspects of mortal thinking. And believe you me, the most confining aspect of mortal thinking is gendered thinking, the belief that we are either male or female. Why? Awareness, the awareness that right now is here, listening. Awareness is always here and now, about the business of comprehending and beholding and listening and viewing and perceiving itself. This awareness right here, right now, is not gendered, despite the fact that you can look down and see female fingers and toes there, or you can look here and see what appear to be male fingers, and if I had my socks off you'd see toes. But listen, awareness is not gendered, and we stop thinking of ourselves as a gender. We stop thinking as a gendered point of view to perceive ourselves as above and beyond, as above gender. That is the awareness that is being all there is to the appearance of male or female. Then, so identified, I assure you that we come into a conscious knowledge, a tangible knowledge of what is meant by the appearance of male and female. We come to understand the qualities and characteristics of that particular point of view called male and that particular point of view called female. And we can see that one delineates the other, and that each is the self-fulfillment and self-completion of the other, and that each one serves to make the other one clear, and that what one appears humanly to need, the other possesses, and that where one is weak, the other is strong. And we can see the beautiful, perfect compatibility of the whole. And yet, you see, what really all of this amounts to is a very perfect balance right here as this awareness. And that balance being twixt intellect and heart. But heart is the greater. Heart is the above. Heart is the all-inclusive. And if you will look at certain of the philosophies of the world, you will see that, well, let's take Taoism that I happen to be most familiar with. It says that yin, the male, is white, and that it is the power and the authority. And it describes it as sort of like a little comma, part of the circle, you know, that's white, but it has within it a little speck of black. It can't be all male. And it is the power and the authority. And then on the other hand, it shows it enwrapped and self-completed and self-fulfilled by another little comma that's black or female. But it has a little speck of white because it can't be all, one or the other. It must be all if it's infinite. And the two are self-fulfilling and self-completing. Yet the power and the authority, according to the Taoist, lies with the light, the white, or as it would say, male, and that its delineation and self-fulfillment, its self-description, lies with the female, the fallow, that which is receptive and receives. It might be, to use still another analogy, we could say that it's much like the symphony itself in its totality is male, and the notes which delineate the symphony in its infinite detail, note by note, and line upon line, and bar after bar, and chord upon chord, and is the female. And that while the notes are quite necessary, the notes live and move and have their being because the symphony is, yet the two are one. But still, even though the two are one, the power and the authority reside as the symphony and not as the notes. And it must be understood that no intellectually acceptable statement can ever be right or correct, for the simple reason that an infinite is cannot be limited to a finite statement. How can infinity be limited to a finite statement and still be infinite? So therefore, the minute you get a finite statement and say that that's it, it is not it and could never be it. The Jews most cautiously in times past refused ever to write the word for the ineffable, and they used so many different words, and finally they gave up and wrote nothing at all, or substituted the word yud or something in lieu of the word God, or the infinite, or the ineffable. And this is why it's said in Taoism and in many of the other philosophies that if it's uttered, whatever is uttered could not conceivably be it, but could only be a crooked finger pointing toward it. Well, the point of view that lies at the center of an infinite sphere is balanced by the circumference. But infinite wisdom, which is what this awareness right here is, sees from a point of view, for the very simple reason that right here, right now, we see form and are looking out from what appears to be a point in time and space. So therefore, a point in time and space, a point of view does exist. Yet right here, right now, this very awareness is infinite and unbound. And while containing a point of view within itself, this point of view, perceiving tangibility, is perfectly balanced by the unseen and infinite intangible, which is a perspective from all points of view. And these two are simultaneous. And quite past an accurate or defining intellectual statement thereof. This very deep and abiding sense of equanimity that seems to be mine to talk about is, in my experience, a very perfect balance between the heart and the intellect. That's why I can speak of it with authority. It is a balance. And whenever any action on the part of a bill appears to be wrong, then an imbalance ensues. Bill I, or Billy here, feels that imbalance, and it's as though I had a voice behind me saying, "This is the way, walk ye in it." I assure you that when I make a mistake, I'm the first to know about it. When I say or do something amiss or awry, I'm the first to know about it. And I cannot talk about anything else with authority but that itself. this itself. And this is why, most surely this is why I can only speak of an equanimity and a tranquility that is this identity. And I cannot tell another what to do or what not to do. I don't give advice. I don't give... If someone asks me what to do, who am I to tell anybody what to do? I can no more tell somebody what to do than I can tell a leaf which side of the pathway to fall on when I see a leaf falling out of a tree, or I can tell a bird which limb to light on when I see a bird approaching a tree. I don't try to do that, neither do I try to tell anybody what to do or not do, but I can, with great authority and honesty, say what I did under similar circumstances. I can say what I would do if faced or confronted with what appears to be such a situation as might be outlined. Most often I'm most often asked questions in areas where I have gained the victory. And if it happens to be something, and sometimes it is, about which I have not yet lived, I assure you I don't go out and theorize and speculate about what I think it should be, or the way I think it ought to be, or the way it should turn out or shouldn't turn out. I live it first. I live it, because inevitably the living of it modifies the idealistic view of it. The first heartfelt view of everything, while it is pristine and tremendous, it has, at least for me, always been modified in the living of that view. That view put to living against the overwhelming odds that would try to put it down does, in one way or another, give forth with still another product about which I can only speak, and that is all I can speak of with authority. But what I have lived and what I know, I wonder with all my heart if I could suffer the abuse that is certain to ensue should I talk about it. The whole theory of the universe is directed unerringly to one single individual. For myself, the grand awakening was the fact that this awareness right here, right now, was one, was single, was all-inclusive, including the appearance of every other so-called body form, or all individuals within it, including the body form called Bill. The day I stood up at the pond, I saw, as awareness sees, and saw that awareness itself was this identity. I, identity, am. Now, at the time, at this moment, when I was so hyper-aware of what identity was, I did very shortly after, that very evening, become hyper-aware of all that identity is not and could never be, which was a tremendous focus on the belief of identity that I had formerly, up until the pond experience, believed myself to be. And I recognized at this moment that this was precisely as it should be, else omniscience would not be omnipotent at all, but would only be aware of identity as identity is. Now, granted, identity as identity is not, that is the former belief of myself, I could see the nothingness of it, the powerlessness of it, and I could see the significance in letting go the belief that that one was me, rather than awareness itself. And surely, as one becomes aware of what is not is no longer a concern, and is no longer powerful, and no longer something that we cater to and bow and scrape before and allow to lead us around by the nose. But the knowledge of it is present. Now, all there is to the thing called devil or Satan is that which isness or deity knows that deity is not and could never be. Now, the power of Satan is the belief that that is not or could never be, is and has been. All there is to Satan is the belief of a selfhood apart from God. The belief that this awareness right here, right now, is the proud possession of some kind of a grand ego to whom it has been given. Well, who is that ego to whom this awareness has been given? Who is that one? Who is it? I ask you, who is that one? That one is the one of few days and full of trouble. That's the one that is gathered up and burned. It's the husk, the one that withers. That is the one that we are not and have never been. But now, upon the recognition that awareness is identity, the recognition that awareness is, that is not identity called ego, the belief that something contains or possesses this ego, rears its head, fights vigorously to maintain, sustain itself. It vigorously attacks whatever it knows it will do it in. This is the struggle referred to as Armageddon. But the victory in time is assured because the victory has already existed in timelessness or in eternity. It has already taken place. How would we infinitely know what identity is without knowing what it isn't? In much the same way that how would we infinitely know what wealth is unless we had tried to live poverty and penury in one way or another, or lack of health or companionship or something. The whole human experience is a matter of lack. Every problem that has ever presented itself within the human experience has been a matter of supply. This is why the question of supply should be understood for what it is. So ego, the belief of ego, is not identity, is the means by which the divine I, the one ego called God, can be fully, infinitely, omnisciently known. Again, I say, otherwise, omniscience would not be unlimited knowing, but would be limited knowing, and therefore not omniscience at all. Whatever appears to have a hold on us is something to which we've yielded ourselves servants to obey. If something appears to have a hold on us, then we are identifying as that which can be held. The onus of freedom, realized, lies with us, and not with the slave master, not with that which appears to have its hold on us. But for a time we all yield ourselves in such a way, and for good reason, in order to infinitely know that dominion is who and what we are. We all play the role of slave, otherwise we wouldn't know what dominion was. To infinitely know simply means to know beyond theory, to know beyond speculation, to know beyond belief. Knowing that can only come from living what's known. Where is there anything outside of this one single wholeness capable of holding one? Can there be the alone one and then something else? Once upon a time I looked into a mirror and I didn't like what I saw. So what did I do? I smashed the mirror, and I felt better for a time until my bloody hand became infected. And you see,
while the mirror appeared to tell me something that I didn't like. It was just a mirror being a mirror, doing exactly what it was supposed to be doing. The interpretation and the response was mine alone, not the mirror's. Now, ego doesn't like what explains it away. Ego smashes what explains it away. The only role, let me say it like this. Only the role of a clutcher, only the role of one holding on to something can play the role of one who is being clutched or possessed by something. In that game, you see, the clutcher inevitably clobbers or gets clobbered by the clutched in order to awaken to the futility of the attempt, in order to awaken to the futility of trying to be a clutcher or clutched, even as the one who thinks that there is another beside himself to be a mirror unto. That is, the minute one thinks that he can be a teacher or an instructor to somebody that doesn't know, usually gets smashed. And when I say he gets smashed, I mean he gets smashed by more than the fruit of the vine. There is no way that I know of short of learning the lesson of the moment, of what is before the eyes, if the lesson is pressed upon us. For instance, how many times does one get angry? We get angry over and over and over again from youth up, and people begin to pride themselves in their anger and how angry they can get and what a temper they've got and so forth. But how many times over and over again does one get angry before he stops killing himself with anger? Well, just so many times do we live the ego role again and again, until we understand what the ego possessor or clutcher of awareness role is, until we understand what it is. Feelings. We all know that you can feel what the young folks would call vibrations. Who can deny that you can stand along the Pacific coast and feel the thundering ocean, and it's a surcharge of static electricity in the air? Of course. But now listen, to identify as a point and looking out at other points and giving that point the ability to possess good vibes or bad vibes is not the way to do it. Rather, we identify as the line, which is an infinity of points. And in this way, we can see then that the vibes we feel are the vibes we be. And this way, we damned well stop yielding ourselves servants to obey people or things, because we think that they have vibes. And this way, we exert and live the dominion that is ours, right here, right now, from the beginning. Heavy heart, listen. There's a meadow of soft grass very close at hand. A bubbling brook is close by, cool water, singing a song of relief and release from the anguish of heaviness. There really is a mellow meadow, beautiful, rolling, gentle, and fragrant. And in the center of it, neath a tree, is a place to rest. The hillside there may seem steep, and there may seem to be no one to take you there, but you can find it. You will find it. Be very still and it'll find you. It'll call you. And you know, when you find it, you'll smile. It's inevitable. It is the meadow of identity. It is beautiful, fresh, and clean. It is guiltless. It's perfect. It's eternal. Flowers grow there. Butterflies flutter there, and chipmunks scamper. Fearful heart, listen. There's a soft sound and a bright light nearby. They are the love of God, and they are one. You are certain to hear them and see them, for they are yourself, the self you are. The sound of birds singing ends discord. There in the midst of yourself, darkness vanishes. Bright light of new day is discovered. Somewhere there's an old tree, a place to sit and rest, a place to let go fear and anguish and concern and doubt and guilt, a place to let go care, heaviness and gloom, a place to dream. The woodland, like the meadow, is your identity. There is peace in the midst of it, and you're certain to find it. It's yourself, you see. It is yourself. Self, seeking and finding. You are certain to find the love you are, waiting you in perfect peace and in gentleness. So look up without fear. Stand tall. Everything is in the hands of all. Run with the heart and sing. Intellectual struggle isn't the way. Struggle just is not the way. Lightness and light is the way. The gentle touch, the soft touch. That's what leads us to the quiet center of the self we are, God self. And there, listening to the heart's melody, comes the strength to live this life, and to live this light fearlessly, and with effortlessness, and with grace, and lightness.